It's great to be here. Let me thank Gloria, and let me thank Connie for speaking before her. Connie, thank you for coming to Manchester. Thank you for coming to Granada. And thank you for telling us you're coming to Labour, voting Labour at this election. It's fantastic for Sarah and me to be here in Manchester and to be joined by so many friends tonight. And I'm pleased that Norris Cole from Coronation Street, he's even managed to escape Mary's clutches to be with us. Malcolm Hebden, thank you very much. And it's been pretty relentless, non-stop, on the go, never a moment's let up, working round the clock. I don't mean the last 4 weeks, I mean the last 13 years of a Labour government. Because we've been busy changing lives, busy changing communities, busy changing this country for the better and forever. And on May the 2nd, 1997, we set out to work, and we've been working ever since. And just think the battles we have fought together and won. The minimum wage first enacted in 1997. First, £3.60 an hour, now £5.80 an hour. And now in Labour's manifesto, a minimum wage set to rise in the coming Parliament, not to £6 an hour, but to £7 an hour. Britain's minimum wage is one of New Labour's proudest achievements. But it's not my achievements, or Tony's achievement, great as Tony was and is. No, it's our achievement, it's your achievement, and it's the achievement of the people of Britain for supporting a minimum wage. And it shows what good men and women of conviction can achieve when they work together for the common good. And I'll tell you what else we've done together. On the first day of this campaign, I met a teacher. This isn't one of David Cameron's type of stories. I really did meet her. And she really was a teacher. And you know what she said to me about the difference we had made? That back under the Tories, she used to teach with a bucket beside her desk because she never knew when the classroom would leak and the kids would have to learn in their coats. But now, after 3,700 schools have been rebuilt or refurbished with Labour, teachers know that we not only fixed the roof when the sun was shining, but we built hundreds of wholly new schools. And now it's not old buckets in the classroom. It's not old buckets in the classroom, it's new laptops, new whiteboards, and new teaching assistants. Now that's not my achievement or Tony's achievement, that's your achievement and the achievement of every single person who has voted Labour and joined our fight for fairness over these years. And you know what else we've achieved by fighting and working together with the British people? The shortest NHS waiting times in history. 3 million more operations a year, over 44,000 more doctors, 90,000 more nurses, GPs open into the evenings and at weekends, free cancer prescriptions, a 2-week maximum wait to see a cancer specialist, over 100 new hospitals, the winter fuel allowance, free TV license, TV licenses, bus passes for pensioners, the pension credit, the New Deal for the unemployed, full-time rights for part-time workers, the social chapter, record maternity pay, for the first time in history, the right to paternity leave, the biggest program of council house building for 20 years, the Disability Discriminations Act, the Racial and Religious Hatred Act, the Equalities Act, the first black cabinet minister, the first Muslim minister, the first black woman minister to speak at the Commons Dispatch Box, civil partnerships, gay adoption, the repeal of Section 28, and yes, the right to book into a bed and breakfast. Devolution, a Scottish Parliament, a Welsh Assembly, even a Mayor for London, the transformation of our great cities, bright new dawns for Leeds, Sheffield, Birmingham, Newcastle, Bristol, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Manchester. The Human Rights Act, crime down by a third, the handgun ban, domestic violence cut by 2/3, rape convictions up by a half, more police than ever on our streets. The world's first ever Climate Change Act, beating the Kyoto emissions targets, the tripling of overseas aid, the cancellation of debt to the poorest countries, the ban on cluster bombs, peace in Northern Ireland, a Britain in Europe's mainstream, not in Europe's slipstream, free swimming for kids, free museum entry, the right to roam, banning fox hunting, the Olympics for London, 500,000 children out of poverty, extended schools, 42,000 more teachers, the best ever exam results in schools, education maintenance allowances, record number of students, and for the first time, the majority of students are women. A doubling of apprenticeships, a child trust fund for every newborn child, Sure Start children's centres, free nursery places for 3-year-olds, and child tax credits that this government brought in and which a Tory government would try to cut because they just do not get it, never have, never will. So when people say that politics can't change anything, we reply, it can, it has, and it will in the future. And let us never forget that for the advancement of so many of these great causes, we had to fight, not just the Conservative Party, but the Liberal Democratic Party too. And let's never forget that the most important lesson of these days is a lesson that is today more relevant than ever. And what is it? It's simple. When we fight, whenever we never give up on the fight, when we fight and fight and fight, we win. And that's what we can say today, that our Labour Party, our movement of fighters and believers, is the greatest fighting force for fairness this country has ever seen. And let me tell you why. Because we are men and women who know that we cannot be wholly comfortable while others go without comfort. We're men and women who cannot fully be at ease while millions are ill at ease. We're men and women who cannot be totally secure when others are insecure. These are not for us matters of calculation, but commands of conscience. For whenever we see injustice, we want to end it. Whenever we see suffering, we want to relieve it. Whenever we see unfairness, we want to rectify it. These are Britain's values, And these are Labour values. Not the values that spring from markets, but the values that spring from our hearts. So, it's no condemnation of wealth to say that our first duty is to help the not so wealthy. It's no criticism of success to say we must reach out not to those, just to those who succeed, but to those who have never had a chance of success. It's no criticism of those of aspiration to say we must celebrate not only those who aspire, but also lift up those who've never been able to reach higher. And I say to you today, it is no attack on good private services to say a good society depends on good public services, universal to all. You know, whether the adjective the Conservatives apply is big or small, there is still no such thing as society if it leaves too many services cut. If it leaves too many people on their own, isolated, defenseless, and vulnerable, without a guarantee that if they strive to move forward, they will not be condemned to be left behind. You know, in this election, we're fighting for causes every bit as big as any in 1997. Because we know we're in a new world now, and while the yearning for fairness is the enduring rock of ages, its application must change with every age. And that is why today, in this first election of a post-crisis world, we are fighting for what we will be able to look back on, list and commend in 5 years' time. Because even as we act to cut the deficit, if we make the right decisions now, it will mean by 2015, cancer tests within not 2 weeks, but 1 week for every patient who's worried. Free health checkups for the over 50s. The restoration of the link between earnings and pensions. 1 million new skilled jobs. Broadband access for all. A national care service for our elderly. A post office people's bank. More free nursery places. A father's month of leave for new dads. A new toddler tax credit, 10,000 new council homes a year, protection of post offices and local pubs, an independent and thriving BBC, low carbon energy and thousands of new green jobs, a referendum on electing the Lords and changing the voting system. And yes, I can say today for more than a minimum wage, a rising minimum wage every year, a minimum wage that rises in line with earnings. That is the offer of a Labour government. That's the change that we choose. And you know, everywhere I've gone in the last 4 weeks, people say to me, "You look better than on TV." And I reply, "Thank goodness." But let me be blunt. If you want the guy whose hair is always perfect, whose tie is always straight, whose slogan is always snappy, you have a choice. The other two. And you know, my case against them isn't their youth, or their inexperience, or their background. It's their poor judgment. And as with child tax credits, it's their shared policies which are so unfair. So if you want someone with judgment and the right values, then I ask you to stick with me. You know, because the real X factor is putting an X on the ballot paper beside the person who will secure your future. And how could you put a cross against a question mark? Because at the heart of this election is a fundamental question about values that Mr. Cameron cannot resolve. Now, how can it be fair at one and the same time to cut the child tax credit and the child trust fund while offering an inheritance tax cut worth on average £200,000 for each of the 3,000 wealthiest estates in the country? It's the first tax cut in history that's been based on someone's address book. Because how can it be fair when times are tough, not to protect you, but simply to protect the few? In last week's debate, 5 times I asked Mr. Cameron this question. 5 times he did not answer. I suppose he could have phoned a friend. He could have asked the audience. He could even have gone 50-50 with Nick Clegg. But nothing. But nothing, and why? Because he's okay at question time, but he's not so good at answer time. And why? Because he's defending the indefensible. An unfairness, an inheritance tax giveaway to millionaires that gives the most to those who have the most and does not provide the greatest help to those who are the most in need. And everybody knows that when the Conservatives were faced, everybody knows that that is unfair and it's immoral and it's indefensible. And you know, when the Conservatives were faced with the greatest economic call of this century, dealing with the global financial crisis, on every occasion they called it wrong. They were wrong on the nationalisation of Northern Rock. They were wrong on help for homeowners, which we provided. They were wrong on help for businesses, which we have given. Wrong on help for the unemployed, which we are now giving. They're wrong today on the need to maintain support to the economy now. They are wrong, 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 and wrong again on the economy. And now that Kenneth Clarke has admitted that they got it wrong on Northern Rock, and tonight has been slapped down for his pains by the Conservative leader, it's clear that there are only 2 people left in the whole country who think they were right on the financial crisis. One is hoping to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer by Friday, the other is hoping to be Prime Minister. Those who don't learn from their mistakes are bound to repeat them, and that's why I say the Cameron-Osborne economics is too big a risk for this country. Too big a risk. You know, their approach to the crisis and their approach to the recession has mixed the worst policies of the 1930s with the worst policies of the 1980s. And it's exposed a difference that is quite fundamental between the parties. It's as clear as it is fundamental. We have helped the unemployed. They still believe unemployment is a price worth paying. We have stopped small businesses going to the wall. They said, just let the recession run its course. We have supported people to stay in their family homes. They said, as they did in the 90s to mortgage holders, let's let you sink or swim. We are on your side, and they are passing by on the other side. So we can never allow them to risk our country's future or yours. And so never let anybody tell you there are no real differences between the parties anymore. That it doesn't matter who you vote for, that the outcome will be the same. I speak to you tonight about the economy because I have some understanding of the risks. Asian banks are vulnerable. The whole banking system is yet to complete its restructuring. Some European economies are facing huge market pressures. Europe itself is barely growing. Unless we can persuade the rest of the world to grow faster than Britain's new growth, then Britain's new growth will be affected too. To shrink the economy by £6 billion now, as the Conservatives propose to do in the name of a right-wing ideology, simply means lost jobs, lost homes, lost businesses, and lost growth. They would threaten every family on a middle or modest income in this country. We need a government that understands the importance of European cooperation. We need a government that understands the importance of international coordinated action. And we need a government, as we are, a government with policies for jobs and growth. Never so clearly have two economic philosophies confronted each other so directly. Ours says, we will support you to achieve jobs and growth. And the other says, we will leave you isolated and on your own. And you know, it's not just your family finances that Mr. Cameron has in his sights. It's the public services your family relies on too. You know, the public services that we rely on are more than the hospital, the school, the police station, the Sure Start. They are our hospitals, our schools, our police station, our Sure Start centres. They are woven through the fabric of our lives. And you know, they are not just places in our communities. They are places in our hearts. They are places where life begins and lives are saved. They are places where our children learn and grow. They are places where we gather to sustain each other and give of ourselves, where help comes to us when hopes are dark and homes or neighbourhoods are in danger. Public services. These are services we cannot provide on our own, magicked up by some big society. These public services are what we choose to provide together, and not just for ourselves, and not just for some, but for all the community. Public services universal to all. And again, I ask myself this question: why are the Conservative Party so against the guarantees we are giving to patients and parents and citizens about the availability and quality of their personal and public services? And I'm finally working it out. You see, in their minds and for their money, there is always an escape route. So what does it matter to them whether or not there's a one-to-one tuition guarantee so all children can find the potential and expand their world? But I tell you, it matters to me, and it matters to the British people that these amenities are available for young people. And, you know, if some can afford to live in a gated community with 24-hour security, what does it matter to them whether or not there's a policing guarantee to make the streets safer for everyone else every hour of the day? But I tell you, that guarantee matters to me, and it matters to the British people who want law and order on the streets. And you know, if some can afford private healthcare and to see a doctor anytime you want for any reason that you want, what does it matter to them whether or not there's a cancer guarantee on the NHS when someone else needs to see a doctor for the gravest of reasons? But I tell you, it matters to me, and I know it matters to every single member of the British community. You know why? Because for most people, the National Health Service has not been, as that Conservative member of the European Parliament called it, a 60-year mistake. For most people in this country, the NHS has been a 60-year liberation. And so in this election, for all the millions of pounds they have spent, and all the hundreds of posters they have put up advertising me, the Conservatives have not proved to anyone's satisfaction that they can ever be trusted with our NHS, or ever trusted with our schools, or even trusted with the policing and law and order of our country. And this is the fundamental difference between the two parties. We want public services that serve the whole public for the public good. And if the Conservatives really understood the lives and the aspirations of middle and modest income Britain, they would stop living a lie. They would stop living the lie that you won't hurt middle-class child tax credits when they've already banked the money from axing them. They would stop living the lie that nursery education will be free when your secret documents show the Conservatives have already planned top-up fees for toddlers. They would stop living the lie that your billions of cuts will make no difference to the jobs of teachers and teaching assistants, and tell us the full truth that within weeks the public services under a Conservative government will be hit. They would stop living the lie that they're all for maintaining our police numbers when you know within months you'll be sending PCs their P45s. And they would stop living the lie that the NHS is safe in their hands when their first act will be to remove people's right to see a cancer specialist within 2 weeks. Let me say, people remember what happened the last time. The poll tax, the mass unemployment, the record interest rates, the poor cabin classrooms, the NHS on their knees. And despite the warm words, scratch the surface, and the Tories might have changed their tune, but they haven't changed their minds. Now, I want to speak directly to the British public this evening. I have never known so many undecided voters as we have seen in this election. Because most people don't live inside the political bubble. You're getting on with your lives, trying to balance work and family. You're saving for a holiday or a car, dealing with the everyday realities of the life you live. You think about politics when you have to. And what is clear to me as I go around the country is that you really are thinking this election through. And I know what it's like to make a big decision. You think about it, you worry about it, you weigh up the pros and cons, you consult your friends, your family, your colleagues, you take the time you need, but then you decide. Tonight, tomorrow and Thursday, millions of our fellow citizens are making a big decision. And they're thinking about it, talking about it, worrying about whether they are doing the right thing. In its own way, it's as big a decision as any, because the future direction of the country we all love depends upon it. The stakes are that high. Not for us, the arrogance of those already taking victory for granted. For us, the humility of knowing there are many who have doubts and still to make up their minds. And I say this to the many undecided voters. You're right to reflect. Our challenge is to meet you, see you, talk to you, not take you for granted, but assure you we have a record to be proud of and we will protect it. We have a plan for the future and we will implement it. If you give us your support, I know that when an opposition party says it's time for a change, you deserve to know what that change would really mean. If it's style before substance, let's face it, they win. If it's recovery or risk, we win. If it's a thought-through plan for the future or sums that don't add up, we win because we have a plan. If it's a team or a one-man band, we win because we have a great team of ministers. And if it's about fairness in our DNA or about privilege, we win again. So I want to say to those who've decided to support us, thank you. Now help us persuade the undecideds amongst your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I want to say to those who have yet to decide, listen to what we have to say. When the last 48 hours of this campaign have passed, in that 1 minute in the polling place, vote for the kind of country you believe in and come home to Labour. Because I say to the country, I want what you want. A country where those in the middle can reach higher, where those left behind are never written off, where we all move forward together. A land of progress, not privilege, not austerity, but prosperity. And so what is this election about? It's about a record to be proud of, and we will fight to protect it. It's about the Tory risk, and we will fight to prevent it. It's about our plan for the future, and we fight for the right to make it happen. Because I say to the British people, it's a fight not for me, it's a fight for you. It's a fight for your jobs. It's a fight for your living standards. It's a fight for your tax credits. It's a fight for your schools. It's a fight for your hospitals. This is our fight. And it is a fight that we have to win for Britain. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much.